key thing is we have so many parallel processes running at the moment with regards to trying to address Eskom sustainability. So we have the Eskom strategic plan, which was only presented to the shareholder towards the end of last year. We have the presidential committee looking on restructuring Eskom, and we expect the president to obviously make some announcements in the State of the Nation around what the future for Eskom is, what government guarantees, how much debt government will take on Eskom. So we have these parallel processes running which have a fundamental impact on the pricing. So therefore, until such time as those decisions are made, we can't rely on this process to continue in the absence of having clarity on that. I think Eskom has to be looked at from a cash perspective. So what do they need to be able to run over the next couple of months or a year? And then once we know from a structural perspective what has to change, we can address the fundamental process then. But also we must remember that the regulatory methodology is run in an environment where there is a stable utility model, not for a crisis environment in which we find ourselves in. And we've seen too often where the regulatory methodology is being gamed because neither party, neither NERSA nor Eskom, are getting what they want out of it. So it makes a mockery of a regulated system when clearly the situation doesn't warrant that methodology at the moment. For us, that is significantly concerning. Tariffs are one thing that the availability of plant is problematic. We've seen a significant decline from 2016, 2017, and now in 2018, we're sitting in the 60s, and the plant performance should be around 80s. And that has two biggest impacts. One, Eskom is forced to load shed industrial customers through interruptibility, which has an impact on performance from an economy and a willingness to invest. Two, it has an impact on price because we're running gas turbines. Three, the other impact it's having on prices, it suppresses sales because we're shutting off people who would have paid for electricity to avoid load shedding, and that has an impact. And that's tied into the valuation that we have on the assets. If the assets are so poor that we cannot actually deliver the energy, why are we valuing them so high? EIUG recognizes that Eskom is critical to our survival and we are to theirs. And it's not only money that can address the maintenance issue. We talk about Eskom being overstaffed, and that was probably the case, but whether they have the right skills has to be addressed. And it's clear in the maintenance issues and the availability factor that I don't think they have the right skills at the right places. The EIUG is always committed to working with Eskom to providing technical support where needed, or any other support that Eskom might need to motivate staff or help with processes. So the EIUG has always made that available to Eskom. So the regulatory asset base is a mechanism in the regulatory pricing model to look at ways in which returns can be had, so we don't have stranded assets in a monopoly environment. Why it's so important for us in this application is because the regulatory asset base has been revalued from about 700 billion to 1.2 trillion, and that represents almost 40% of the price application that Eskom is doing. So it's purely an accounting process they've put in place, which has a massive impact on tariffs. So the point of a regulatory asset base has been missed. It's now being used as an opportunity to game the tariff application. So it is something crucial that has to be looked at. The first thing is that we have made significant inputs into the presidential committee, and one thing that has to be done is we have to look at Eskom's debt. We have to find a way to address the debt, and we have to look at ways in which we can change the way in which they operate about that. So without some relief from government from a debt perspective, addressing it through the tariff is impossible. No one will be able to afford it. So one, we have to relook at the debt equity ratios and government's contribution, and we have to look at the operating model for Eskom into the future. We can't have the same operating method when the world is so rapidly changing from an energy supply perspective. Some numbers that have been bandied around the 100 billion that government will assume of Eskom debt, we think it has to be higher to give Eskom the breathing space to be able to get some sustainability back without impacting the whole country from an economic perspective on tariffs. So we think it will be higher than the 100 billion, but I think that is one of the things we are keenly looking out for at the State of the Nation address. What we've seen over many years is a significant increase in electricity costs, and when those prices started increasing, members obviously took significant efforts to improve energy efficiency, address energy consumption, look at squeezing out efficiencies in all their processes. Over 10 years now, those low-hanging fruits have been exhausted. So our ability to absorb electricity price increases has come down to zero. Remember that most of our members are exporters, so we are price takers in the international market. We cannot pass on price increases to our customers, which means that we've absorbed these price increases for 10 years and we are no longer able to do that. So our competitors internationally now will be able to produce cheaper than we will, which means our economy will have to shut down. That's for us is the biggest concern that we have, is that if our members cannot afford the prices and the subsidies that are included in our tariffs, which provided to the smaller users and residential and poor, if we stop using, those subsidies disappear to those users, which means their price increases will be significantly higher and in fact unaffordable. And that's going to be a recipe for social unrest.